Hello, and thank you for watching Accelerate with Nerdio. In today's video, I'm going to go over our default architecture for Enterprise WVD environments. So basically, what do you get out of the box post-provisioning? So first, I'll walk you through an architecture diagram, and then I just want to talk about some of the defaults in networking, virtual machines, desktops, and the environment itself. So let's start with this diagram, right? So this just gives us a quick view of what it is that's going to get provisioned in Azure that makes up the infrastructure, the desktops, the networking that is necessary to be able to immediately start logging into desktops. So from the top down, and we'll discuss these individually in a moment, you'll have networking, right? We have a VNet that's going to be created to allow for networking to be around this environment. And then we have two subnets, DMZ and LAN, and there is one server in that subnet called the ADFS proxy server. Within the LAN subnet, we provision a file server and an Active Directory domain controller. We also provision a template and a desktop pool so you can start testing those services. Again, this was just the quick view. You can get this architecture diagram directly in the Nerdio admin portal. It's on the home page. So let's talk about the networking portion that gets built. First, we create a VNet in Azure. The address space is 10.125.00/16. So this is the address space that our two subnets can be created within. So we create a DMZ and we create a LAN. So we also then protect this environment with what's known as network security groups in Azure. So we're going to protect our subnets with overall rules on top of them. And then from a networking perspective, we will use public IPs in almost everything that we provision. Again, you can go deeper into this in the Azure portal, but you can also view the associated and assign IPs from the Nerdio admin portal. So when we think about the virtual machines we're going to build, so again, by default, we create DC01. This is an Active Directory domain services, so domain controller, right? This is a new forest and domain that you specified what that domain name is going to be during provisioning. We have configured group policy from this machine, and we also run AD Connect on this machine. FS01. This is where your user profiles and documents are going to be stored through redirection. We also have things like print services enabled on there, so you can immediately start to share printers across the environment, as well as some default company share folders that can be used to immediately start migrating data into. PRX01, this is the one that lived in the DMZ zone. This is an Active Directory Federation Services server. You don't have to utilize this, completely up to you. We have a great video on what this server does that I recommend checking out. And then our golden image template. So this is the Windows 10 template that you can use to create dedicated desktops or templates that would then be the foundation for WVD pools. So we've talked about the networking, we've talked about some of the infrastructure servers. There are also two desktop types that we provision, right? Again, we want you to be able to immediately start using the environment, demoing if needed. You can always remove these if you're going to have some downtime before you start using the environment or just simply want to create them yourself. We'll create a dedicated desktop. It's WVD001. And we also create a demo initial pool, Pool A. So environmental defaults, some of the things that we consider best practices, and I will promise there's so many of them, I can't list them all here, but we do have a lot of these documented online. Things like FS logic, right? We're going to automatically set up profile redirection to FS01. And there's a 30 gigabyte default limit per profile. This is Microsoft best practices. You can modify this type of setting, right? So I think what's important to mention here, these are defaults. This is what we consider best practices and what we know will get you moving forward. You own the environment once it's provisioned. You're welcome to modify things to your needs. Group policy. We configure a few group policies within the environment. We have a My Document and Desktop redirection that goes to FS01. Again, we keep that redirection separate from the profile. That way, if a recovery is needed on the profile, it doesn't affect document and desktop items. And then we also have, a default password policy already in place, including complexity. And you'll see other things, optimizations for Office. Again, things that you can go in and start to modify. You should be very comfortable using group policy within the environment. AD Connect, right? So we install AD Connect on DCO1. We set up a one-way sync. We see partners going in all the time, modifying that to a two-way sync so they can do password write back. So again, defaults you guys can modify. Just want you to know where it's at. And then what I would call a secured firewall. So we talked about those network security groups that are around our subnets. Our default is that all external access to the environment is disabled, denied, whatever you want to call it. We have basically deny rules on all the ports that would normally be used to infiltrate the environment. And this means that you can go in the firewall and you can enable RDP from your IP address, so you know that you've got that secure connection, or you can use the generate RDP option in our servers module, which creates that type of rule. It sees your local IP address, creates an open port for RDP rule, but then will also remove it after a set amount of time again, so you've secured the environment. And that is pretty much it from an architecture and design standpoint, but for defaults. Always feel free to check out our other videos to better understand how these pieces start to work once you've finished provisioning. Visit help.nerdio.net if you need anything further, and thank you for watching today's video.